Chapter 1. The Wedding That Wasn't Mine. The day I got married should have been the happiest day of my life. At least, that's what people kept telling me. "You're a lucky man," one relative whispered as he patted my shoulder. "She's stunning." Another leaned in, glass of champagne in hand. "She must really love you." I smiled, but deep inside, I wasn't sure if any of it was true. She stood at the altar in a white dress that glowed under the lights, but her eyes weren't on me. They kept wandering. I saw it. Every few minutes, she searched the crowd, and then I spotted him, her ex, sitting there, jaw clenched, hands folded, pretending he wasn't watching her every move. I whispered to myself, "Why is he here?" When she finally turned her gaze back to me, her smile looked rehearsed. It was the kind of smile that said, "You're convenient. You'll do." During the vows, my voice trembled. I said, "I promise to stand by you, in love and in loyalty." When it was her turn, she recited the words smoothly, but her tone lacked warmth. She didn't stumble, didn't pause, didn't even look into my eyes long enough. After the ceremony, as we walked down the aisle, I leaned close and whispered, "You couldn't even look at me once." She didn't flinch. Instead, she whispered back, "Don't overthink." It's just nerves, but I knew nerves when I saw them. This wasn't nerves. This was distraction. At the reception, the whispers started. She only married him because of her breakup. Poor guy. He doesn't even see it. She's still in love with her ex. Everyone knows I tried to ignore them, but the words pierced me like needles. My best friend, Adil, came up to me near the buffet table. He leaned close and muttered, "Listen, I'm not here to ruin your day, but she's playing you." Look at how she keeps glancing at him. I forced a laugh, even though my stomach tightened. "You're imagining things." "No," he said firmly. "You're the one imagining." "Open your eyes, brother." I brushed him off, but the truth was already digging into me. Later, when the dances began, she barely touched me. Her hands rested on my shoulders like they didn't belong there. When I whispered, "Are you happy?" she replied coldly, "Of course." But her eyes betrayed her. They flickered once again toward him. Halfway through the night, I stepped outside to breathe. The night air was cooler than the suffocating warmth inside. My heart pounded. I pressed my hand against the wall and muttered, "What have I done?" Behind me, a voice answered. "You did what she wanted," Adil said. He had followed me outside. She wanted to prove to him she could move on. "And you're just the proof I snapped. Stop it." "She chose me." He shook his head. "No, she used you." The words stung. I wanted to argue, but my silence betrayed me. When I went back inside, she was laughing with him. Her ex stood too close, his hand brushing hers as if testing boundaries. I froze in the doorway, watching the two of them share a smile that was more genuine than anything she had given me all day. I walked toward them. My steps were heavy, each one fueled by a growing fire inside me. When I reached her, I said calmly, "Dance with me." She looked startled, then annoyed. "I already danced with you." I lowered my voice. "I'm your husband now." "Act like it." Her ex smirked, muttering just loud enough for me to hear, "She still looks better by my side." I clenched my fists, but she grabbed my arm quickly, pulling me away before I could respond. She leaned in and hissed, "Don't cause a scene." "Don't embarrass me," I whispered back. "Embarrass you." "You're embarrassing me every second you look at him." Her jaw tightened. "Stop being dramatic." He means nothing, but deep down, I knew he meant everything. That night, when the guests were gone and the house was quiet, we lay in bed. I stared at the ceiling, unable to sleep. She turned her back to me, scrolling through her phone. I caught a glimpse of the screen, his name flashing in the chat window. I whispered, "Even tonight? Even on our wedding night?" She didn't answer. She just locked the phone and muttered, "Good night." I lay there in silence, my chest aching. And that was when it hit me. This wasn't my wedding. This wasn't my marriage. This was her revenge story, and I was just a character she cast without asking me. I closed my eyes, and one thought repeated in my mind like a curse. I was never the groom. I was the weapon. Chapter 2. Whispers behind closed doors. Marriage didn't feel like marriage. It felt like a performance where I was the only one reading my lines seriously. At breakfast the next morning, I asked softly, "Do you regret marrying me?" She didn't look up from her coffee. "Why would you ask that?" "Because you haven't looked at me properly since yesterday." Finally, she lifted her eyes and said flatly, "You're imagining things." "Don't be so insecure. But insecurity wasn't the problem. Betrayal was. The days that followed were filled with whispers, not just outside, but inside our home. I would walk past the bedroom door and hear her voice low and urgent on the phone. When I asked, she snapped, "It's just a friend." One night, I caught her typing furiously, the glow of her phone lighting her face. "Who are you texting?" I asked. She rolled her eyes. "Do I need your permission now?" I pushed. "At least be honest." She sighed heavily. "Fine. It's him. Happy now?" I told him I've moved on. "You should be grateful. You're part of that proof." My chest burned. Proof? That's what I am to you? Not a husband, not a partner. Just evidence? Her lips curved into a cruel smile. "Don't act surprised. You knew what this was." "No," I said, voice shaking. "I thought it was love." The cracks widened. At dinners, she would compare me to him. He never forgot anniversaries. He always knew how to handle a room. He was better at making me laugh. Each word was a blade. Adil noticed the change in me. One evening, he cornered me outside my office. "You look like hell," he said. "I'm fine," I muttered. "No, you're not. She's draining you. Everyone sees it." I snapped. "What do you want me to do? Leave her?" He held my gaze. "Maybe. Or at least stop letting her humiliate you." I had no answer. At home that night, I tried to confront her again. "I can't live like this," I said. She laughed bitterly. "Then don't. No one forced you." I slammed my fist on the table. "You married me." "And you said yes," she shot back. "Don't act like you're innocent. You wanted me so badly you didn't care why." Her words froze me. Maybe she was right. Maybe I had been blind. Still, the truth stung more than any excuse. A week later, the whispers grew louder, this time not inside our house, but outside it. Friends and neighbors whispered that she still met her ex, that they'd seen them together. When I asked her directly, she didn't even deny it. "So what if I saw him?" she said coolly. "He's a part of my past. You can't erase that." I clenched my jaw. "You don't want to erase it. You want to keep it alive?" She shrugged. "Maybe I do." I stared at her, searching for any trace of guilt, but all I saw was arrogance. That night, lying awake in the dark, I realized something. She wasn't afraid of losing me, because in her mind, she never had me. She had only used me, like a weapon, a shield, a tool. But deep inside, a different voice spoke back to me. A colder voice. If she thinks I'm just proof, she hasn't seen what proof can really do. I turned my face toward her as she slept, the phone still clutched in her hand, and whispered to myself, "You'll regret this." Chapter 3. The mask starts to slip. The first time I caught her lying to my face, I didn't even know how to respond. I asked, "Where were you last night?" She didn't hesitate. "With Sarah. We had dinner." But I had already spoken to Sarah earlier that day. Sarah had laughed awkwardly and said, "Dinner?" "No, I haven't seen her in weeks." So I just stared at my wife and said, "Sarah says hi." She blinked, her fork pausing mid-air. Then she smirked. "Oh, right. I meant another friend." I leaned back, my chest tightening. "You can't even keep your stories straight." She shrugged. "Stop interrogating me." "You're not a cop." "No," I said quietly. "But I'm your husband." Her eyes hardened. "Then act like one and stop nagging." That night, I lay awake again, listening to her typing in the dark. Every sound of her nails tapping the screen felt like a nail hammered into my chest. I whispered, "You're still talking to him, aren't you?" She didn't look up. "So what if I am?" I sat up, staring at her. "So what?" "You're married to me." Finally, she turned to me, her face cold. "And you're married to a woman who doesn't love you. So what now?" Her words cut so deep I couldn't breathe. I opened my mouth to argue, but nothing came out. The next day, I followed her, not because I wanted to, but because the doubt inside me had grown into a monster. She told me she was going to her mother's house. Instead, she drove across town to a small cafe. I parked across the street and watched as she walked in, and there he was, her ex. They sat close. Too close. Their laughter carried through the glass. At one point, his hand touched hers, and she didn't pull away. I clenched the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. When she finally came home that night, she greeted me with a casual, "Traffic was bad." I smiled faintly. "Yeah, I saw." Her eyes widened just for a second before she masked it with a laugh. "Saw what?" I leaned closer. "The cafe. Him. You. All of it. Her smile disappeared. So you were spying on me? I was watching my wife betray me. I snapped. She crossed her arms. You're pathetic. No, I said calmly, even as my voice shook. You are. For the next few days, the mask she wore began to slip. She stopped pretending to be kind. She didn't even hide her contempt. One evening, she threw her phone on the couch and muttered, "You'll never be him." No matter what you do, I looked at her and asked, "Then why are you still here?" She smirked. Because being with you hurts him more than being with him hurts me. The room spun. So I'm just a weapon to wound his pride. Exactly, she said without shame. I stared at her for a long time. For the first time, I didn't feel pain. I felt something sharper, something colder. I said quietly, "Then you've underestimated me." She frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, I said, turning away. Just wait. From that moment, I stopped being her victim. I started listening, watching, collecting. Every insult, every lie, every careless whisper filed away in my mind. I began smiling more, even when she mocked me. She thought I was breaking, but inside, I was building. At dinner one night, she laughed at me in front of her friends. He can't even pick a wine properly. My ex always knew exactly what to order. Her friends chuckled uncomfortably. I smiled and raised my glass. Maybe I'm not him, but maybe that's a good thing. She rolled her eyes. Keep telling yourself that. I smiled wider. I will. Inside, my thoughts burned. Keep underestimating me. Keep thinking I'm weak. Soon, you'll see what I've really been working on. Chapter 4. My Secret Work begins. The night she told me I was nothing but a shield, I stopped being the man who begged for scraps of love. That version of me died right there in the silence of our bedroom, with her back turned to me and her phone lighting up with his name. I whispered into the dark, "Fine. You want proof? I'll give you proof, but it won't be what you expect." The next day, I reached out to someone who knew me long before her, Samira, my business partner. She had stood by me when I built my small company from nothing, the one thing my wife never cared to understand. To her, it was boring paperwork. To me, it was blood and sweat turned into power. When Samira picked up the phone, her voice was sharp. "You sound serious." What happened? I hesitated before saying, "I need your help. I think it's time to use what we've built." She was quiet for a moment. "You're talking about the files, aren't you?" "Yes," I said firmly. "Every contract, every ledger, every record. I want it all organized, traceable, and ready." Her voice lowered. "You're planning something." I replied coldly, "I'm preparing justice." That evening, while my wife pranced around on her phone, giggling at texts that weren't mine, I sat quietly at my desk. My laptop glowed as I typed through folders, pulling together documents she never knew existed. She glanced over once and sneered. "You're always working. That's why you're so boring I didn't look up. Work keeps the lights on." She laughed. "Please. Your little projects, my ex made more in a month than you'll ever make in a year." I smiled faintly. "Then maybe you should have married him." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't tempt me." I kept typing, each keystroke a nail in the coffin of her arrogance. A deal came over a few days later. He studied me carefully, his brows furrowed. "You're different," he said. "Am I?" I asked, sipping my tea. "Yeah, you're calm, too calm. What are you planning?" I chuckled. "You once told me to stop letting her humiliate me." "And now," he pressed. "Now," I said softly, "I'm making sure she humiliates herself." His eyes widened. "You're scaring me, man." "Don't be scared," I told him. "Be patient." The more she mocked me, the harder I worked in silence. She thought she had broken me, but I was building something behind her back, a fortress of truth. One night she barged into my office. "What are you hiding?" she demanded. "Nothing," I said calmly, closing the laptop. "Don't lie to me," she snapped. I leaned back in my chair and smiled. "Funny? That's my line." She glared at me, then stormed off, slamming the door. I whispered to myself, "Keep slamming doors." "Soon you'll see the one that closes forever." Samira kept sending me updates. "The files are ready. Everything is in order. You just say when I texted back, soon." At night, I began rehearsing. Not words, not excuses, but silence. I imagined standing in a room, letting her speak, letting her laugh, letting her believe she was winning, until the truth turned on her like a blade. The final rehearsal came when she tried to humiliate me at a dinner with her family. Her brother raised a glass. So, what do you do again? Something small, right? Before I could answer, she cut in. He shuffles papers. Nothing exciting. At least he's good at staying out of the way. Her family laughed. I forced a smile and said, maybe one day you'll see how powerful papers can be. She smirked. Doubtful. Inside, I smiled. Good. Doubt me. That will make your fall even sweeter. That night, as she slept, I stared at her and felt no love, no longing, only clarity. She thought she married a weak man despite her ex. She thought I was harmless. But in my silence, I was weaving something stronger than her pride, sharper than her betrayal. My work wasn't just numbers and contracts. It was the rope she would one day hang her arrogance with. And when that day came, I wouldn't even need to lift a finger. She would pull the trapdoor herself. Chapter 5. The Bidding Stage. The night of the charity auction arrived, and she insisted we attend. It'll be good for appearances, she said, slipping on her diamond earrings. Besides, people should see us together. I chuckled. Together? She glanced at me through the mirror. Don't ruin the night. Just stand there and look decent. I buttoned my jacket slowly. That's all I ever do, isn't it? She didn't reply. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers, the kind of place where money wasn't whispered, but flaunted. She clung to my arm, not out of love, but out of strategy. Every step she took was deliberate, her chin tilted high as if she wanted him, her ex, to see how well she had moved on. And, of course, he was there, sitting at a table near the stage, eyes locked on her the moment we entered. I leaned toward her and murmured, "You invited him, didn't you?" Her lips curved. Maybe. I smiled faintly. Perfect. When the bidding began, art pieces and rare items flashed under the lights. Then came the moment she had clearly been waiting for. She leaned close and whispered, I submitted something for the auction. A surprise. I frowned. What surprise? Her smile widened. Your work. My pulse slowed. What? She straightened in her chair, her eyes glittering with mischief. Those boring papers you're always obsessed with. I thought I'd show everyone how small your world really is. Let them laugh. Let him laugh. I forced a calm expression. You auctioned my work. Not just auctioned, she said smugly. Exposed it. The announcer stepped forward, holding a sleek binder. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, our next lot is a fascinating collection of business documents, detailed records of transactions, contracts, and ownership shares. Murmurs rose in the room. I sat perfectly still, watching as the spotlight shifted toward us. My wife beamed, her hand brushing mine as though we were allies. Ready to be humbled, she whispered. But then the announcer continued, these documents submitted anonymously reveal the backbone of a rapidly growing company, one that has quietly taken over multiple competitors and secured exclusive contracts across the region. Tonight, bidders will have the rare chance to glimpse the engine of a rising empire. The room fell silent. Then the murmurs shifted, this time not of mockery but of awe. Is this real? These contracts are worth millions. Who owns all this? Her smile faltered. She glanced at me, eyes wide. I raised my glass and said calmly, surprise. The bidding started. Numbers flew higher than the art pieces combined. Businessmen whispered to each other, recognizing the names, the networks, the power. One voice shouted, 2 million. Another countered, 3. The crowd buzzed with excitement. The documents she thought would embarrass me had become the star of the night. I leaned close to her ear. You wanted to show the world my work. Congratulations. They see it now. Her hand trembled against her lap. This wasn't supposed to happen. No, I said softly. It wasn't supposed to happen for you. Her ex rose from his seat, his face pale. He scanned the room, then looked at her with something between pity and disgust. I caught his words as he muttered to a friend, she didn't even know who she married. That was the moment her mask cracked. She hissed at me under her breath. What did you do? I smiled. Nothing. You did. You put my empire on display. You turned my silence into gold. Her breath hitched. Empire? Yes, I said simply. Empire. The auctioneer slammed the gavel down. Sold. Applause erupted. People swarmed me, shaking my hand, congratulating me. They finally knew who the quiet man beside her really was. But she sat frozen, her face drained of color. I turned to her and whispered, you wanted to prove I was nothing. Instead, you proved I was everything. Her lips trembled. You humiliated me. No, I corrected. You humiliated yourself. As we left the ballroom, the whispers followed us, not about me, but about her. She tried to shame him. She exposed her own ignorance. She never knew the man she married. Her hand slipped from my arm, and for the first time, she walked behind me instead of beside me. That night, I looked at her across the car's back seat. She sat in silence, staring out the window, her reflection pale in the glass. I finally said, "You wanted to hurt him by marrying me. But in the end, the only person you hurt was yourself." She closed her eyes, and I swear I saw the first crack of regret break through her pride. Chapter 6. Her fall from grace. The morning after the auction, she didn't get out of bed. I stood at the doorway, sipping my coffee. "You're not going to work?" Her voice was muffled under the blanket. "I don't feel well." "Strange," I said, leaning against the frame. "You looked perfectly fine when you were trying to humiliate me last night." She shot up, her hair tangled, her eyes red. "Stop rubbing it in." I shrugged. "Why?" "That's what you wanted for me, wasn't it? For everyone to laugh?" Her lips trembled, but she didn't answer. By noon, the whispers had already spread. Friends who once admired her stopped calling. A cousin who had praised her beauty now sneered online about her clueless arrogance. That evening, her phone rang nonstop. She picked up one call on speaker by mistake. "Why would you do that to your husband?" A woman's voice snapped. "You made yourself look like a fool." She ended the call quickly, her hands shaking. I sat across from her at the table. "People see now." "Not just me. Everyone." She slammed her phone down. "This isn't fair." I leaned forward. "Fair? You tried to ruin me. You laughed while I bled. And now you want fairness?" Her face crumpled, but her pride didn't let her cry. The days turned darker for her. At a dinner with her family, her father said coldly, "You embarrassed us." "Do you know how foolish you looked?" She turned to me for defense, but I just sipped my drink. Her brother scoffed. "You thought you were clever. Turns out he's the clever one." "Not you." She stood abruptly. "I don't have to sit here and be insulted." Her father's voice boomed. "Sit down. You made your bed. Now lie in it." I didn't say a word. Even her ex turned away. She tried calling him more than once. I overheard one call when he finally answered. "Leave me out of your mess," he said coldly. "But I did it for you," she whispered. "No," he replied. "You did it for yourself. And now you've ruined yourself. Don't call me again." The line went dead. She sank to the floor, clutching the phone like it was her last lifeline. I walked past her without stopping. "Funny," I muttered. "You spent all this time chasing him, and when you finally need him, he's gone." Her sobs filled the silence. By the end of the week, she couldn't even face our neighbors. They whispered when she stepped outside. There she is, the wife who didn't know her husband's worth. She tried to break him but broke herself. Pitiful. I watched her shrink a little more each day. The woman who once strutted with arrogance now avoided mirrors. One evening, she sat on the couch staring at nothing. I asked, "What's wrong?" She snapped, "Stop acting like you care." I smiled faintly. "You're right. I don't. Not anymore." Her eyes filled with tears. "You hate me." I shook my head. "No. Hate takes energy. I just don't see you anymore." Her downfall spread further when people at her job began whispering too. She came home furious one night, slamming her purse on the table. "They don't respect me anymore. They all look at me like I'm a joke." I raised an eyebrow. "Wonder why?" "You think this is funny?" she shouted. "No," I said evenly. "It's justice." The final blow came when she tried to attend another public event. She dressed in her best gown, painted on a smile, and dragged me along. But when we walked in, the room fell silent. People glanced at me with respect, and at her with disdain. One woman whispered loudly, "There's the wife who didn't know the value of her own husband." Another added, "How do you sit beside a man like him and not realize what you have?" Her face burned crimson. She grabbed my hand under the table, nails digging into my skin. "Please," she whispered, "tell them it's not true. Tell them I knew." I leaned in close and whispered back, "But you didn't. And that's why you're here now, falling while I rise." That night, she broke down completely. "I can't take it anymore," she cried, pacing the living room. "Everyone hates me. Everyone thinks I'm stupid. I've lost everything." I watched her collapse into a chair, her mascara streaking her face. She whispered hoarsely, "Why aren't you helping me?" I looked at her and said calmly, "Because you never helped me. You only tried to destroy me, and now you're just reaping what you planted." She stared at me through her tears, her voice barely audible. "You're not the man I thought you were." I smiled coldly. "No, I'm the man you never bothered to see." Chapter 7, The Confrontation. It was bound to happen. After days of whispers, stares, and her pride crumbling, she finally exploded. She stormed into my office one evening, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. "You ruined me," she screamed. I didn't look up from my desk. "No, you ruined yourself. Don't you dare twist this," she shouted, her voice breaking. "You knew exactly what would happen at that auction. You let me walk straight into it." I leaned back in my chair, folding my hands. "I didn't push you. You dragged yourself." I only watched, her face twisted in rage. "You think you're clever? You think humiliating me makes you a man?" I stood slowly, meeting her eyes. "No. Walking away from humiliation made me a man. And you handed me that chance on a silver platter." She paced the room like a trapped animal, tears blurring her mascara. "You don't understand," she said. "I loved him. I wanted him to suffer. I thought marrying you would prove I didn't need him." I raised my voice for the first time. "You didn't marry me. You used me. And the worst part? You thought I'd never know. You thought I'd stay the fool forever." She stopped pacing, her chest heaving. "Maybe I did. But don't act like you didn't know. You knew I still loved him. You saw it in my eyes." "Yes," I said, my voice sharp. "I saw it. On the wedding day, I saw it. Every time you looked past me, every time you whispered his name into your phone, I saw it. And I stayed. That's my mistake, not yours." Her lip quivered. "So this was all revenge?" I shook my head. "No, this was truth. You made your own cage, and now you're choking in it." She collapsed onto the chair across from me, burying her face in her hands. Her voice came out muffled. "I hate you." I exhaled slowly. "Good. Hate me. Because at least then, you'll stop pretending you ever loved me." She looked up sharply, her eyes bloodshot. "You're cruel." I tilted my head. "Cruel? Number. Honest. Cruel was when you let me think I mattered while you laughed at me behind my back. Cruel was using me as your weapon." She flinched, as if the words themselves cut her. The silence that followed was heavy. I thought she might break it with another scream. But instead, she whispered, "Can't we start over? Please. I can change. I'll cut him off. I raised a hand to stop her. "Don't." Her voice cracked. "Why not?" "Because I don't want a version of you that pretends," I said firmly. "I don't want your second chances. I don't want your apologies. You're not sorry. You're desperate." Her tears spilled over, dripping onto her dress. "You're walking away from me? After everything?" I leaned closer, my voice low. "You never gave me anything to walk away with. You stripped this marriage bare the moment you let his shadow live between us." She stood suddenly, fury replacing sorrow. "Then what was I to you, huh? If I was so worthless, why did you stay?" I didn't hesitate. "Because I needed closure. Because I wanted you to see me. And now you do. You see exactly who I am, and it terrifies you." Her voice shook. "You're right. I don't recognize you anymore." "Good," I said. "That means I'm finally free from the version of me you built. The weak, blind fool." She staggered toward the door, but paused. "You'll regret this," she whispered. I smirked faintly. "No. You already regret everything for both of us." Her hand lingered on the doorknob. For a moment, I thought she might turn back. But then she walked out, leaving the door open behind her. I sat back at my desk, exhaling slowly. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from release. The confrontation was over. The truth had been spoken. And for the first time since the day I said I do, I felt like I finally did something for me. That night, I lay in bed alone. The silence didn't hurt anymore. In fact, it felt like peace. She tossed and turned beside me, whispering under her breath, but I didn't listen. I didn't need to. Her downfall wasn't mine to control anymore. It was hers to live with. And I had already walked away in my heart. Chapter 8. The Betrayer's Regret. She tried to act normal at first. She cooked dinner one night, something she hadn't done in months. I walked into the kitchen, the smell of spices heavy in the air. She turned with a forced smile. I made your favorite. I raised an eyebrow. Since when do you remember my favorite? Her smile faltered. I want us to start fresh. I sat at the table, folding my arms. Fresh? After you dragged me through the dirt. Her voice shook. I was wrong. I see that now. Please give me another chance. I stared at her for a long time before saying, You don't miss me. You miss your reputation. Her eyes filled with tears. That's not true. Yes, it is, I said coldly. You only care because people finally see you for what you are. The next day, she tried another tactic. She dressed in the gown I once told her she looked beautiful in. She twirled in front of me, forcing a laugh. Remember this dress? You couldn't take your eyes off me. I glanced up from my laptop. Now I can. Her smile collapsed. Do you hate me that much? I shook my head. I don't hate you. I just don't love you anymore. Her voice broke. You can't mean that. I mean every word. A week later, she reached her lowest point. She showed up at my office unannounced, her makeup smeared, her eyes swollen. Samira frowned at the sight of her but said nothing as my wife burst into my office. She slammed the door behind her. Talk to me. Please. I leaned back in my chair. About what? About us, she cried. I know I was wrong. I know I hurt you, but can't we fix it? Can't we try? I stood and walked to the window, staring out at the skyline. You spent months spitting on me. Now you want me to pretend it never happened? Her voice cracked. I was stupid. I thought hurting him would heal me. But I destroyed myself instead. I turned slowly, meeting her desperate eyes. Exactly. You destroyed yourself, not me. I just stopped holding the pieces together. She collapsed into the chair across from me, sobbing. I'll do anything. I'll cut him off forever. I interrupted. It's too late. Her voice trembled. Why? Why can't you just forgive me? Because forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting, I said firmly. And I will never forget the way you made me feel. Small, worthless, invisible. She shook her head violently. No, you're not worthless. You're everything. I see it now. I smiled faintly. But now it doesn't matter. Because I don't need you to see it anymore. I see it myself. Her ex made the final cut. One night, she admitted through broken sobs, he's getting married to someone else. I lost him. I lost you. I lost everything. I looked at her calmly. No, you didn't lose me. You threw me away. She grabbed my hand, pressing it to her cheek. Please don't abandon me. I have no one left. I gently pulled my hand away. You had me. And you killed me over and over with every look, every word, every lie. Now I'm done being your corpse. Her tears fell freely. You're cruel. I leaned closer, my voice low. No, I'm finally honest. From that night onward, she hovered like a shadow. She tried to smile at me in the mornings, tried to sit closer at dinner, tried to mend what she had shattered. But the more she tried, the more I realized there was nothing left to mend. The cracks weren't cracks anymore. They were craters. One evening, she whispered, I regret everything. I looked at her, my face calm. Good. Because regret is all you'll ever have left. That night, I lay in bed, listening to her muffled sobs. For once, the sound didn't hurt. It didn't twist my chest or make me want to comfort her. It felt like justice. I closed my eyes, and the thought came to me as clearly as if someone whispered it in the dark. Her regret is my freedom. Chapter 9. Silent Victory. The house was quieter now, not because she had stopped speaking, but because I had stopped listening. One morning, she sat across the table, her hands wrapped around a cold cup of tea. Her voice trembled. Do you ever think about what we could have been? I didn't look up from the newspaper. No, I think about what we are. And that's enough. Her lips quivered. We could have been happy. I folded the paper and set it aside. We could have been. But you chose revenge over love, and now you live with that choice. Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't flinch. In public, people treated me with respect. Businessmen shook my hand. Old friends who once doubted me now spoke my name with admiration. But her... She walked beside me like a shadow no one wanted to see. The stares that once adored her now sliced her pride apart. One evening, at a gala, a woman leaned in and whispered, You must be proud of your husband. My wife forced a smile. Yes, very proud. The The woman's eyes narrowed. Strange. You never looked proud before. My wife froze. I simply adjusted my tie and said, people change when the truth is revealed. The woman smiled politely at me, then turned away, leaving my wife pale and trembling. At home that night, she cornered me in the hallway. Why are you doing this? She demanded. I frowned. Doing what? Letting everyone look down on me. I shook my head slowly. I'm not doing anything. You built this yourself. I'm just walking forward while you stay behind. Her voice cracked. Don't you care that I'm suffering? I leaned in close, my tone calm. You didn't care when I was suffering. So, no, I don't. Her hand rose as if to slap me, but she froze halfway. I stared at her until her hand dropped, useless. Thought so, I muttered, brushing past her. The nights grew lonelier for her. I could feel it in the way she clung to me in silence, hoping I would soften. One night, she whispered in bed, "Do you still love me?" I turned my back to her. No. She sobbed quietly, and I felt nothing. No guilt, no pity, only release. Weeks passed, and her pride crumbled into something pitiful. She hovered near me, like a ghost haunting the life she once mocked. One morning she tried again. Can't we just forget everything? Start over. I looked her dead in the eye. Forget? I'll never forget how you made me feel small. I'll never forget that I was just a weapon in your little war. And I'll never forget that you destroyed your own life, not me. Her tears spilled over, dripping onto the table. So, this is it? You'll never forgive me? I stood, grabbing my coat. I don't need to forgive you. Karma already did the work for me. The final nail came when her ex married someone else. The news spread fast, and she came to me broken, holding her phone like a knife cutting her hands. They're married, she whispered, her voice hollow. He moved on. I have no one. I looked at her calmly. You had me. And you threw me away. She fell to the floor, sobbing. Please don't leave me. You're all I have left. I crouched down, lifting her chin so she had no choice but to look into my eyes. No, you don't have me. Not anymore. Her breath hitched. Then what do I have? I stood tall. You have regret. And that's all you'll ever have. That night, as I sat alone in my office, I reflected on everything. The betrayal, the humiliation, the silence, the whispers. It had all led here, and for the first time I felt no anger, no bitterness, just peace. She thought marrying me would hurt her ex. She thought I was weak, a fool, a shield. But in the end, her arrogance turned my silence into strength. My work, my empire, was never meant to destroy her. She destroyed herself when she underestimated me. I closed my eyes, leaning back in my chair, and whispered to myself, justice doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes it comes in silence, and in that silence, I finally found victory.